I have very mixed feelings about being on social media, which skews so young, and feeling like I'm competing with so many like 25-year-old content creators. And there's a part of me that just wants to say, screw it. I'm leaving this space. I'm going to go write a book. I'm about to be an academic so that I can be young from my new milieu. Like,
I was about to do that. I was about to go get a PhD. And I just turned 44.
Yeah. Oh, congratulations. Are you a Virgo?
No, I'm a Cancer. So not just, but it still feels just.
Girl.
It feels just because it just happened for me in my mind. And are we doing the podcast right now? Is this the podcast?
Do you mind? Do you mind if we include
No, I just need to know because I was going to. Okay, so this is the podcast. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was going to go get my PhD, and I, for the last year, had been planning on that, and I took it in for, I had an informational with one of the creators of the program, and then I went to a colloquium that they were having with some of the current master's students, and then of course professors that were in the program, as well as like it was me and like one other PhD prospect.
Mm-hmm.
And the way it was working was that the two professors that were presenting that week, they basically present like whatever they're working on, and then the room discusses it. And so one of the things that was kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It was just kind of like interesting was that I got recognized by everybody when I got into the building, the security guard, the professors, the other students. So there was something in me that said, oh, you're going to have to be small to be here. You're going to have to get small to be in this space. And I didn't have like a reaction to that. It was just a antenna reception. Like you're going to have to get small to get in this space. And then one of the professors that was presenting, she started talking about her work, and her work is in Black women spoken word poets of the last 20 years. And I was like, so me. And you know, the women she's naming are my peers, you know, and they've been to my house, you know, and so it was like, okay, this is fascinating. And then she revealed a little later, like, yeah, I know your work. Like, we're just happy to have you in the room. So I'm like, okay, this is interesting what this is going to be like. And I had actually added to their conversation a little bit. So then we went and got food, and we all came back, and then there was more conversation, and a professor had asked a question, and then I raised my hand and said, can I ask a question? And one of the professors that was moderating the colloquium was like, can we have somebody else who hasn't spoken yet? And I
like what you really want is to be a professor, not a student. You want to be at the front of the room.
That moment. But it's not even that I wanted to be in front of the room. It's just that I didn't know until I was there how much I had to offer the room.
I've had a similar experience where I've had friends who've gone the academic route who've written books, and you know it's tough to get your book published, to get anyone to read it once it is published, and to find myself in the position where, because I have a podcast, I have the capacity to give them more of a platform from having no, like, you know, they've been toiling in some PhD program for 6 years and writing a book for all of these years. And then I'm the one who has the platform, and I'm the one that's listened to. I even have some mixed feelings about it. I feel a little guilty about it sometimes.
It's where we are.
There's some awkwardness.
No,
right?
It's true. But it's what it is. Yeah. I mean, I realized though, when I realized like, oh, I actually don't need to get it for where I am in my development, in my like existence at present. The knowledge I'm looking for is actually not in the institution.
Where do you think it is?
It's outside. It's metaphysical. I have a theory that, I mean, it's not like it's my own theory, but I mean, many would echo this, but I feel like these revolutions, these resistance movements that we find ourselves continuously starting, but that end up being, you know, muted and suppressed, oftentimes are really lacking a spiritual component. And I don't mean particularly like a organized religious component. I mean, if we get metaphysical about it, like we are just disconnected. And I don't just mean Black people. I mean, just people who are typically indigenous people who are, they're the ones who are being attacked, quite often are being disconnected from their land. Like that is the actual attack. We're seeing it in Palestine. We've saw it in Guatemala. And so we as Black folks who were not only stolen and brought over here and then forced to work land that we don't even get to own, we also had our spiritual rights from those different cultures and different nations that we were from on the continent completely stripped from us. And so it's like we're lacking a certain connection to another power that we don't have. And I know that for some people who are listening, they're like, what is this woo-woo shit she's talking about? But I mean, at this point, I'm like, we have to explore other things because we find ourselves in this cyclical practice of going up against the same kind of evil over and over and over again. Like it don't even look different. It's the same.
I'm so with you. No, I'm so with you. I was literally just talking to a recent guest at the show, actually, about him setting me up with his astrologer in Baltimore.
Yeah.
And how I want to do another astrological episode, even though the audience revolted against me a little bit when I tried to do it the last time. But never mind. Some of these episodes are for me, kids. Let me tell you something.
So my good friend, astrologer Laura Chung, she talks a lot about how astrology has been used by a lot of these movements. How like Ronald Reagan, like they used astrology very much, you know, but also she said, you know, in history, like astrology has absolutely been a very big aspect of when they decide to do things. And then when you look at, you know, like the eclipse just happened and like Nat Turner, that's what inspired him, you know, so I think for me, I just had to be like about a lot more open. It's like when you realize that Western medicine ain't it, like there's a whole other like space of knowledge that you can pull from. And I feel like if we are honest, we're here in the West, we're very limited. You know, like there's a perimeter that's been drawn around what we consider to be real and valuable that has been drawn by colonialists.
Yeah. Yeah. The spiritual piece, I said this in an interview I did in January with Joshua Citarella. But I have been thinking a lot. I think the despairing sort of post-election moments had me and a lot of other folks trying to figure out a way out. And I totally agree with what you're saying about a sense of disconnect to each other and feeling like when the systems, the levers of power and the levers of change that have historically been relied upon are so completely co-opted and impenetrable, whether it's working through the Democratic Party, whether it's working through labor, whether it's all of these avenues seem to be so locked down and unavailable to us that it feels like the only thing left is each other. And so many leftists, you know, Ryan Grimm wrote a book called "They've Got Power, We Got They Got Power, We Got People." However we want to frame it, the value in each other seems to skyrocket. That the fact that we are each other's maybe only remaining resource seems to be more and more evident. And I don't know what you call it. I wasn't raised in any kind of religious tradition. I certainly don't mean it in an organized religion way either. But I find myself more interested in exploring the power of interpersonal connection and what it is that makes people willing to give for each other and sacrifice for each other and really conceptualize themselves as part of a greater whole that does actually hold its own power. And spirituality seems like a way to unlock that and demand that we be higher than ourselves. And for that reason, I find myself being drawn to the idea. I haven't done it yet.
Well, even if you think about
a Unitarian church or doing something, I don't know.
I mean, even if you think about like witches were burned at the stake, but it wasn't because they were like casting spells. It was because they like knew how to heal folks. And they, you know, and the church was like, no, if you do that, then it'll make us look like our God is fake. And we can't have that. So get you out of here. I think there's also just the reality of knowing that we have been convinced that we only have a limited amount of power, and then being kind of open to the idea that, well, perhaps there is more. Because I would absolutely say that in the United States, we are very, very much, even if we don't want to admit it, there's just such an indoctrination that money is your really only access to power, right? Money or status. And when we're looking at other communities, you know, like my mother's from Grenada, and in Grenada, for what it's worth, when there's a hurricane, it's like everybody's going to have to figure it out. I mean, there's no FEMA. I mean, there is like the island is going to help, but it's the island that's going to help. Like there's no we're not a state where there may be subsidies that can come from other states, or there may be, you can get in a car and and drive somewhere. Like, we're driving too. This is it. So there's a certain level of just kind of built-in interpersonal connection that happens there, knowing like, I don't like this lady, but she lives next door. Like, this is what it is. And we just kind of don't have that training. And I think what you're talking about is moving, and we see this all over the internets, right? It's like the concept of community being more than just like my homegirls, right? Being more than just my family, but this idea of what it requires to have interpersonal connection. I know for me, I realized that my communities, so to speak, up until this point, have really all been formed in competition spaces, which definitely is going to change the timbre of your community.
What kind of...
Like I was a gymnast. So my community was other gymnasts that I'm competing with and against, right? Then I was in theater. Same thing. Like, even if we're not competing, which we did compete a lot, but you're still competing against each other to get on the play, to get the role, et cetera, right? Then in television and film, it's like, even if we are homies and we're all at the same events, like, everyone is still very much like, I want to be the star, right? And those spaces never felt comfortable to me. Like the competition aspect.
Yeah. How do you feel now that you're in this sort of social media and political space?
Well, it's less that I'm in a social media and political space, but more that I'm in I left LA. I live in nature, and for what it's worth, it's like the social media aspect was it's been there since like 2017. Ever since I checked Caitlyn Jenner at this Katy Perry dinner, social media became a thing. Like, overnight, I went from 44,000 followers to 144,000 followers.
How did I miss that? Wait, what happened with Caitlyn Jenner at a Katy Perry? That sounds like a Mad Lib from hell. What?
So this was really a turning point in my life. I was in LA. I had done like one season of Insecure at the time. And I got a call from someone on Katy Perry's team asking me to come and be a part of a dinner she was having as a part of a series of dinners to promote her album Witness. And she was doing this like YouTube Big Brother thing where she was going to have the cameras on in this particular space for like 3 days. And so they were having like a dinner with other women, like an all women's dinner. Then they were having some other dinner. And this dinner was going to be called like a friends and family dinner, and she wanted it to be people that have different opinions, because she had voted for Hillary Clinton and her parents had voted for Trump, and she was afraid to go home for Thanksgiving because she didn't know. Okay,
this is classic 2017 discourse. I remember this about Katy Perry, actually, that she came from a conservative Christian family. I think she grew up singing in church.
There you go.
Okay,
so that's what this was framed in. So they called me, because they were like, okay, we need someone who's going to come here and not just like be nice. And I do not believe in politeness in the way of progress. So if you want to have a dinner,
explicitly as a gadfly.
Yes, they literally brought me explicitly as a gadfly. Like, you're going to come in here. The same when I was on The Real. They brought me, I didn't know that at the time, but that's why they brought me there. But my thing was, okay, who's going to be here? And they were like, well, Van Jones, Anna Navarro, Sally Cohn, Margaret Cho, and Caitlyn Jenner. And I was like,
Did I get a little bit more action than they anticipated?
I said, well, I'll come, but I'm not going to come to it if it's called a dinner with friends, because these ain't my people. So I think we should call it a dinner with discourse. And they were like, okay. Oh, perfect. So I come to the dinner, and the whole conversation for most of the dinner was about how we need to come together as a country. Even if these people did vote for Donald Trump, their voices matter. We need to acknowledge that we're all Americans. And every time I would chime in, I would be, of course, having a disparate point of view of this, because I would say things like, they did speak. They did use their voice. They made a choice to vote for someone who has very overtly stated that they don't care about women, they don't care about Black people, they don't care about immigrants. So like their voice was already spoken, but it would still be this kumbaya BS. And I'll never forget this exchange when they continued the kumbaya BS. And then I said, Trump wants to be Hitler. That is what this is. This is him doing rallies and inciting his audience to harm people who disagree with him. This is how it begins. And they said, well, it's not like he's marching people to gas chambers. And I said, not yet. Hitler didn't start with gas chambers. Yeah. And I remember very distinctly Anna Navarro being like, you're taking it too far. And she owes me an apology. And
of all people.
I know, because she ended up being like overtly, like very, very under no uncertain terms, are we voting for Trump? Like she was very about that.
Yes, so she's the queen of the never Trump Republicans.
so the Caitlyn is quiet. And then Van Jones, being the simp coon that he is, he's like, Caitlyn, why aren't you talking? And she's like, because I'm just very offended. I'm just very offended. I mean, why would you be referring to my president in such a disrespectful way? I am a citizen of this nation, and I have never had to deal with the government in my business. And I let her talk. And I remember digging my nails into my hand because I had been trying to be heard over the course of this meal, and like I just couldn't break through. And now I understand that what I ended up having to do was mask. So I ended up having to put on this nice voice and this mask. And then Van was like, Amanda, do you have anything to say? Because people don't like when I'm talking, Briahna, until I stop talking. And then they're like, what do you have to say? Yeah. And the clip that ended up going viral was me telling Caitlyn, like, it's very easy for you to say what you're saying about this government because you've had a very different relationship with this government than myself. And she's like scoffing, like, I mean, what do you mean? And I'm like, I'm a Black woman. Like, the government has been involved in my life before I even came to inception. And for what it's worth, you as a trans person should know that this government didn't start caring about you till like 2:00 today. So we had signed a deal that they could not post this after the live. So it's not available anywhere. But this clip, somebody cut this clip, Briahna. And on the ride home, this clip traveled through YouTube with the quickness of trying to deify a podcaster. And let me tell you, you were white and Christian, so like you're aligning with the base of this country. But I feel like there's an understanding that says, like, if someone doesn't agree with you, it may come from the fact that they have had a completely different experience.
I totally agree.
You have had I have had nothing of similarity to your experience in this country. Literally nothing. And so for me, it's an insult to me that you don't want to speak because you're not listening to what I'm saying. You spoke because you were urged to and given a floor to.
But he spoke. She spoke.
She spoke, but she didn't want to. She was urged. That's what I'm saying.
Awesome.
So what I'm saying is that all of us here have had such unique experiences and just from such different backgrounds that we have to, like, if this is a conversation about having conversations, then we have to be listening to each other and listening to the fact that, like, the reason I am so passionate, and I'm not hostile, I'm passionate. The reason I am so passionate is because I've had such a different experience in this country than you. Because as a Black woman, the government is so much in my life. And it always has been. Like, the government literally said that Black men couldn't even be in the house or else women could not get welfare. And that's a big reason why there's such a chasm between Black women and Black men in this generation. So I think that there's just a lot to understand for, like, why people are talking the way they're talking about different things. I understand why you're talking the way you're talking. Because I know, because
I just don't understand. What am I talking? I just said I believe in this country.
Yes.
And you
can say that in a way that I cannot, because you've had a different experience. Because this country is here for you. This country ain't here for me in the same way, sis. It isn't. And you, as a trans person, have to also identify the fact that this country hasn't been here for trans until, like, maybe 2 o'clock today. So that's a constant.
I do think this
thing.
is something.
I totally agree in the sense that I certainly grew up different than a lot of people. But you think that I didn't have any, I had so many.
No, I'm not saying you didn't have any
many issues in my life.
But your issues may not have come from the positioning that you have in America. Within 48 hours, I went from 44,000 followers. I remember like it was like 44 to 144,000. And that is that's what essentially brought me into like, oh, you're like a voice on this internet now.
I see. Okay, so Amanda, I have to introduce you. I'm talking to Amanda Seals. She's a comedian. I'm sure she's already alluded to the fact that she was on the hit show Insecure, but you probably know
I
her
let
as a
all of this
comedian
go,
separate and
Briahna.
apart
I go
from
by
that.
artistic intellectual now. I let all that go.
Intellectual. Okay, so because honestly, like all of what we've been talking about is speaking more to like who you are than any of the kind of accolades I could read off of your Wikipedia page. But I do want to let people know who might not be familiar with you as a sort of like political entity, to give them some sense of your trajectory. Because what you're saying right now about this, your sort of like hero origin story being this like left, right sort of constructed discourse across the aisle, evokes one of the more recent events that you engaged with that was viral. Yeah. Right. Which is this Jubilee performance. I mean, audience members are probably very familiar with this Jubilee setup. Mehdi Hassan recently did one as well. And there's been a lot of discourse, especially in the wake of Charlie Kirk's death, about how, the left never is willing to engage and Charlie Kirk deserves plaudits for being able to come to the people and talk to them where they are. And a lot of folks have been like, wait a minute, like Mehdi just did this, Amanda just did this. Like, I've debated Charlie Kirk. Like, I don't know what more you want from us. But I'm curious, having had that experience at sort of the beginning of your, let's call it online career, what made you willing to engage in the Jubilee?
Well, I mean, it's a long route between the two because remember we had a pandemic. I mean, I also ended like, Insecure became a successful show. So my visibility also increased in that way. But more importantly, my knowledge increased, right? And then there was October 7th. And that was an inflection point because I said this on a live recently where I said, my principles are rigid. My judgments are more fluid because my principles relate to social justice and just how I feel we as humans should be allowed to exist. Whereas judgments is like, okay, so let me look at this as an individual person. And when it came to October 7th, it was just, there was no nuance to the fact that this needs to be addressed. Like, it can't be, well, it's sad on both sides. It was on October 9th, I was saying, y'all sound very all lives matter.
And can I credit you for that, Amanda? Like, it was a lonely world. And there were very few people who were speaking with the courage of their moral convictions immediately. I shouldn't say very few. I mean, there were obviously
there were
all
few.
Palestinians. And,
Yeah.
There are people who are already invested in this issue.
Yes.
As we all should have been already.
Bingo.
But in terms of people who had a platform and who had things to lose and who weren't kind of directly implicated and didn't have to speak up, you were one of the few. And I just don't want this episode to go by without me really saying clearly and emphatically how valuable that was and how much respect I have for you for doing that, especially being someone in Hollywood, knowing how much people have suffered and lost jobs and agents and all of the rest for being willing to acknowledge Palestinian rights.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I mean, in that moment, thank you, love. I mean, it was like, I remember calling my professor, one of my old professors, and Mark, and being like, I feel compelled. Mark Lamont Hill, sorry. I felt compelled to speak about Palestine. Like, what's going to happen? And they're like, they're going to come for you. And I was like,
Mark knows. Mark knows as well as anybody else.
And so, but then it was just not, there was no further conversation to be had within myself. And I had an agent who made a whole thing about it. And then like 3 weeks later, it was just kind of like, well, we can still work together. And I said, well, I need to know, are you against Zionism? And he said, no, I'm not for it. I'm not against it, which might as well mean you're for it, because that for me says you're also not going to be able to negotiate on my behalf if it comes to making a decision. But then my other agents, Gersh, they said I was on a list that I needed to be dropped. There's a
list.
They said the list was people who weren't making money for the firm. I had just sold an original show to Hulu. Like a month earlier. Then I was, the agency that I was at before, the other agency was CAA. And I had a PR firm. I was at a PR agency, and mind you, I'm paying them, right? I'm paying them. And they ended up dropping me. And Surefire Media. Just one day I got a call. Hey, we're actually going to have to let you go. We just have too many clients right now. And I had a team of 5 publicists. And I think maybe one of them sent me a text like, hey, so we won't be working with you. So, and I don't think a lot of people know how basic this is for these people, right? Like, it was just like, you're done, right? But for me, it was like a jarring moment of, oh, okay. So this is how it is here. So you need to be somewhere else, versus this is what's happening. Let me fight my way to stay in. I don't want to stay here. I don't want to stay in a space that operates like this. And so then I started trying to figure out just my way out. I had a radio show on Radio 1 called The Amanda Seales Show. There was a situation where the Zionists were actively trying to get my comedy shows canceled. So I was in Detroit. There was a truck outside of the show with my face on the side of it that said Amanda Seales is a Jew hater. They had done an entire email campaign.
Serious?
Yes. They did a whole email campaign. The venue called my manager at the time and was like, hey, like, they're asking us to cancel the show. We're not going to, but just want you to know what's going on. They made like a whole video. These two individuals made a whole video about how, I am anti-Semitic. Then they showed a bunch of clips that show that I'm absolutely not anti-Semitic.
Of course, Amanda. It's so absurd.
So this was like
you have to rebut that. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
But it was just like a very tumultuous, very, like, it wasn't mythological. This whole, like, if you speak about this, they will come for you response and reaction.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to do this stand-up tour, and then they got my show canceled in Philly. And Philly is one of my main markets. So they were successfully able to get my show canceled in Philly.
Well, how were they able to do that? I mean,
because it's the Kimmel Center. And there's Zionists.
So you just got the call and they said what? Like, what was I'm sure they didn't say expressly why.
They emailed my manager and said, we need to talk about rescheduling. And then she emailed them back and said, okay, let's talk about it. I did an Instagram video where I was like, hey, they're trying to reschedule my show at the Kimmel Center, and I feel like they're going to try and cancel it. So y'all need to, like, call them. And the people started calling them. And when people started calling them, they were literally telling them on the phone that the show was already canceled.
Wow.
So then my boss at the time, well, boss is a strong word, but basically, like, we had a partnership, that Radio 1 and myself, Colby Tyner, he calls my manager. He's never calls my manager. He always calls me directly about everything, but he calls her and asks her if she would be willing to ask me to take down my video saying that the Kimmel Center canceled my show, because it's going to adversely affect their ability to get ads from the Kimmel Center. And the Kimmel Center is a very important part of their ad sales. And would I do that? And, this is the situations that you get stuck in, right, Briahna? Because you're like, I work for this company.
Yep.
I work with them. I'm not an employee, but I'm a contractor. But, if they're asking me for a favor, so I complied. And then I sent in the group chat, I said, hey, I feel like you should have come to me first instead of going to my manager. Because you're asking me to do something that is actually like against my morals, right? My values. And you're doing so within the exact time frame that these people have actively taken money out of my mouth and taken the ability for me to do my art from me. And you're more concerned about this other thing. And so we had a conversation about it the next day where he was very adamant about the fact that he didn't feel that there was anything wrong with doing that. He didn't feel that there was anything sideways about asking me to do that, and that he did not need to agree with me. And then I didn't hear from him for 6 months. And then in December of last year, he sent me an email saying, hey, we need to catch up. And I was like, we're past catching up. You can talk to Kiki, since you can talk to Kathia, since that's who you wanted to talk to. And he dodged her for 2 days. And then on that Tuesday, I was getting ready to do my radio show. And I got a call from Kathia that they had canceled it. They said I was too polarizing and not consistently funny, which I consider to be a real actual honor and is now in my bio. Like, thank you.
Too polarizing. Because
I don't want to be in the same. Yeah, I do have it on a t-shirt. That's hilarious.
Do you really?
I do. Remember how you said you made one t-shirt? I did. Yeah, because in that space, they have like Ricky Smiley and they have D.L. Hughley, who both started speaking adversely about me once I started speaking about Kamala not challenging this genocide, about Kamala not coalition building with the left. So, I went through a lot in 2024 in terms of just smear campaigns, whether it's from the DNC side, whether it was from Black media saying I'm unlikable, whether it's from the Zionists. And I eventually had to cancel my tour because they were hacking my ticket site. So I had to cancel my tour altogether.
It's so wild. Okay. I want to get in. You alluded to.
You're like, wait, you're giving me too much.
No, not at all. Like I'm both like not at all surprised and so deeply disappointed that this is the world that we live in, and what anyone who again does the bare minimum, like not that you've done the bare minimum, but like anybody who so much as acknowledges the fundamental rights of Palestinians not to be killed and genocided gets this kind of blowback from their professional institutions.
You know what, though? You know what's more disappointing?
What's that?
Nobody came to my aid.
Nobody in the space. There wasn't like other. Because
I can name one person, Elaine Welteroth. Nobody that, and I don't even know her like that.
Good for her.
But to be very frank, nobody. You would think that there should be a rallying around each other. No, they did not. And then when I was saying that Kamala I've met Kamala Harris. Like, I'm not speaking from.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about all of that.
Yeah,
so
like
for people, Elaine Welteroth used to be head of Teen Vogue when Teen Vogue was like really radical and good during 2020. I mean, it
She's
still
a
is. I don't
lovely
mean to like, but I in the back of my head, I've only met her once briefly at like a Bernie when I was on the Bernie campaign at like a women's something event. But I've always watched her in the back of my head, thought I think that she secretly kind of left because of the direction the magazine took when it was under her stewardship. But it heartens me to hear that she reached out.
I think it's less that she's even like designated left or right or whatever, as much as she's just a principled person. Like she, in a sea of folks that really don't stand on shit, right? Yeah. And like I saw Viola Davis was following me the other day, and I'm sure she doesn't run her social media, but I went on her page and I saw that there was a post about like bravery. And under it, I put bravery would be speaking about the genocide in Palestine.
Good for you. See, that's why people are mad at you all the time, Amanda.
I know.
And you know what? I have that same energy, and that's why I like you and I appreciate it. Because I'm annoying as hell. You can't take me anywhere anymore. I'd be fighting people at weddings. But it is what it is at this point. I'm sorry. Like,
don't bring me if you don't want me to talk about the thing. I'm going to talk about the thing.
Like, it is what it is. Okay, so let me tell you, I fantasize because, I'm not obviously in Hollywood or a celebrity or anything like that. So I fantasize about being annoying, but also mainstream enough that Kamala Harris tries to bring me in to like pacify me, right? Like I wish I could be as like loud and irritating to these people as you have managed to be. So I want to hear all about it. Like, do you feel like she thought this woman's going to be a problem? Because, and also let me not skip past this. The other red line, Palestine is obviously a huge red line in American politics. The other one that is less spoken about because fewer people have crossed it is expressing a willingness not to vote for the Democratic nominee. And to have some litmus test. And don't be black. And don't be a black woman. Because we all know we're supposed to be on that Democratic Party plantation. So you cross all of these lines and you were agitating around Palestine in the lead up to 2024. Tell me what happened. How did it come to pass that you ended up being brought in to meet up with Kamala?
This life is fascinating because if you really just follow your gut, not your fear, but if you really learn how to follow your gut, you're actually bugged out how things just land the way they land. So I one night was like, oh, Professor Kimberly Crenshaw she used to do this thing called, they might still actually do it, called Freedom Summer School, I think, or summer. She used to do, but like an online class program type thing. And so I saw they had a session like David Johns was on there. We went to Columbia together. So I was like, oh, let me just tap in, and be in the audience. So they noticed that I was in the audience and then they like asked me to talk. And then they had a woman on there named Barbara Arnwine, and she does a lot of voting rights activism. And so we were talking about voting rights activism and how ultimately it's not just that Republicans are trying to strip voting rights. It's that Democrats are not doing enough to stop it, right? That they're trying to speak to Democratic leaders and Democratic lobbyists about like, how can we actually like actively prevent this? And they're kind of laissez-faire about it and not considering it to be an important enough issue to put their energy towards. So I'm like, damn, I really want to know more about that. Because post October 7th is when I was radicalized into just simply completely disassociating from the Democrats, right? Because it was like, you can't even, the smoke and mirrors is not even smoke and mirrors anymore. It's just, we aren't about it, right?
Right.
So I then went to dinner with her, and then she was talking about that they go to Selma for the Bloody Sunday commemoration every year. And I had never been, and I had been, again, remember, I'd been ousted by my agents, and I could feel this pull, right? I could feel that I was being pulled into a purpose that was like timely. This has been happening for the past 3 years. I could feel myself pulling into purpose, and you're about to go into it too, because you're about to have your midlife crisis or awakening. It's whatever you choose to make it.
God, don't remind me.
I could feel this pull happening. I started caring about nature on another level. Like it was just like, I'm trying to be a tree. I'm trying to be in the trees. And so I said, okay, I'm going to go. Like, this is where I need to be. I don't need to be at an award ceremony. I need to be at this type of gathering. So I went out there, and then it turns out one of my lovely good friends, Kadita Stone, who's a voting rights activist in Alabama, who was a part of she was actually one of the defendants. One of the why can't I think of the word? The case that got Alabama their new voting district. They brought the case to Alabama.
Okay.
To the Supreme Court. Anyways, I went out there, and she was volunteering for Kamala at the event. The long story short of it all is that I was in the sea of people waiting to cross the bridge, and I get a call from Kadita saying, "Where are you?" And I was like, "I'm with the people. What are you talking about?" And she's like, "Can you come to the other side?" And I was like, "I mean, I guess, but like, why?" She's like, "Because she wants to talk to you." I said, "Who?" "The vice president." Everything has to be dramatic in my life. So her aide comes,
life is dramatic. Okay.
And he's like, parting the seas, and I have to go through, through Secret Service. And then I get there, and she's talking to Nicole Hannah-Jones, and they're in this like room. It's kind of like a small little cafe that they've cleared out. And, they introduced me to Doug, who I'm convinced is a cyborg. And
why are you convinced Doug is a cyborg?
Because he was just like, hello. And it was just like, no affectation. Just, hello. And so Oof. When we spoke face to face, it was very much like, so you have to understand something too. People think that the way I talk to my phone is the way I talk to people.
Sure.
Like I'm in my house by myself talking to my phone about something. Mm-hmm. That's not how I just interact with like humans off the rip. Now, it's not saying you can't get me there, but like I didn't come to Kamala Harris like, okay, and so it's me and her face to face. She's got her Secret Service behind her aides are behind me. And I can't remember her exact words, but it was something to the effect of like, what do you want from me? Like, what are you asking of me? And because I know that my response was, I want you to be different. And what I meant by that was, I want her to be different than the vice presidents who have come before her. The uniqueness of her position was not to mimic the white men, or else what's the point? And that's the thing that I think so many Black folks are really just happy with. They're just happy with representation. Whereas I'm like, no, representation without actual action is literally just a face. It's that means you're being used, not useful.
Yeah, you're there to provide legitimacy to an obviously unequal system. Mm-hmm. And was this before she became the candidate?
Yes, this is February.
Okay,
this is February 2024. And so she said, well, how she was very miffed. And she said, well, how can I be different? I mean, how do you expect me to be different? And I said, to be quite honest, I can't even talk to you the way I want to talk to you with all these people in here. Mm-hmm. And so she's like, clear the room, clear the room, clear the room. So she clears the room and it's me, her, and, 2 Secret Service agents. And I mean, the long and short of it was I said to her, we don't trust you. She said, well, why don't you trust me? And I said, because you don't speak about things directly. You're very circuitous. Like, think about how you speak about race. Like, you say things like we're dealing with the vestiges of race as if we don't have an actual movement, a race-based racist movement happening right now in this country. And she said, well, how do you expect me to call this country racist without saying Americans are racist? Ma'am, you may have to do that. But I said also, even if you don't want to do that, there's racist institutions, there's legislation, there are so many spaces where racism is the crux of this nation that can be addressed directly. And she was just very defensive. And I even went so far as to say, like, you're very defensive. And she said, well, you're very critical. I said, well, I'm supposed to be critical. I'm a voter. But I had also started on Lexapro 2 weeks before. So if she thought she was going to get me to turn up.
Wait a minute, did you talk to her about Palestine at all?
I actually didn't, but I had a keffiyeh on. I had a keffiyeh on and a Palestine shirt at the time, and she had just gotten off stage saying, we're calling for a ceasefire, and then the whole crowd erupts, and then she says, for 6 weeks.
Yeah. Wait, this is actually very timely because as we're recording this last night, so Monday night, she did the talk show rounds for her new book, which dropped on Monday the 23rd. And she did Rachel Maddow last night. And
she didn't do Miss Rachel, though. Because Miss Rachel would be like, why aren't you standing for the Palestinian littles?
She would have. That's an interview that I would like to see. Mm-hmm. But look, so she wrote in this book. Let me give you some perspective, because she's trying to do this revisionist history right now, right? Where she writes in her book. The whole book is like, I wanted to do better, but Joe Biden basically, had me with fighting with one hand tied behind my back, as though anybody. Like she put her hand behind her back. Like Joe Biden had no power over her. She was the nominee. That, Briahna. Like but was a lot of people want to believe her own hostage. Right. I want to see what you make of this, because Alex Thompson at Axios just reported some of this out. He had the book early. We could all get it now, but this is what we got so far. She says, I had pleaded with Joe when he spoke publicly on this issue, Palestine, to extend the same empathy he showed to the suffering of Ukrainians to the suffering of innocent Gazan civilians, the former vice president writes in her book. But he couldn't do it. While he could passionately state, I am a Zionist, his remarks about innocent Palestinians came off as inadequate and forced. why it matters, Alex writes. It's part of Harris's larger effort in the book to distance herself from Biden after not doing so during last year's campaign. And that's what it is right there. Because I am old enough to remember when Kamala Harris became the nominee, like 3 weeks went by without her doing any media appearances. And remember, there was all of this gossip, like, why is she not doing any media? Is this because she's a weak candidate? Why is she not doing any media? And during that period, the only thing that her team put out definitively and conclusively is Kamala Harris will not be breaking from Joe Biden on the issue of Palestine.
That's it.
That's the one issue she wanted there to be no equivocation on. So for her to be sitting here and trying to play, like, really, I'm so different from Biden because I recognize that Palestinians are human beings with lives and Joe Biden did it. Okay. You did not want
this is my
to stop sending
Briahna.
Weapons.
This idea that people don't have agency or choice because they have to keep their positions. Right?
Yes.
This idea, even when I hear people who are no longer employed in certain spaces and they're like, well, I couldn't say anything then. Like, you lost your job for speaking the way that you knew you needed to speak about the thing at the time. Right?
Yes.
Like, there was no, there was no, I need to wait and maybe it's not a proper time. No.
It's the only point of having that job, in my view,
literally
was to say what needed to be said. Yeah.
That's it. So when I see people now being like, well, I had no choice. You've always had a choice. You didn't want to lose what you had for whatever reason, right? Like maybe you have decided that you needed that position in order to try to rally folks to vote for Kamala Harris. Again, we are in a scenario where even Kamala is not taking any accountability. And she's also blaming it all on Joe as if there wasn't an entire Democratic National Committee that was controlling her campaign, right? So I don't know if she points them out at all, because I feel like I only hear from Barack when he's talking about the Democrats, right? I feel like I only hear from these people when they're speaking about it, when they're speaking about their gang. That's when I hear from them. So I don't want to hear it, sis. I don't want to hear it. And I don't want to hear any of these interviews. She's going to have a lot of kiki interviews coming up. I can feel it.
She does. And the thing is, she's not even good. It pains me. It pains me because it doesn't matter if she's like secretly a nice person or like a good to her family or whatever. But in terms of her calm strategy, literally the only time I've seen her come off as like normal and like cool and like legitimate is when she's, sorry, this sounds very sexist of me, but she's a good cook. And when she's talking about the cooking stuff, right? She's talking about
the turkey.
Yes, when she was telling that other Congress member, like her vocabulary expands to all of these cooking terms. She has a confidence. Her back straightens up. She's moving around the kitchen. I'm like, oh, this could be a leader of the free world. The way I see her seasoning this food. Okay. She talks about her mom in a compassionate way and the spices that she learned from him. Like all of that is very endearing and humanizing. Outside of that, she is one of the worst retail politicians I think I've ever witnessed in my life. I want to play this clip. Like someone who's just good at like the work of connecting with people, doing speeches, talking to people, shaking hands, like doing like politician-y stuff, you know? So let me play you this clip. I don't know if you've been following. I mean, I do know you've been following all the Michigas with Zoran in New York and the non-endorsements, and how Hakeem
nice
Jeffries
use of
I think just
Michigas
did
in
it.
this context. Also.
I mean, people get mad at me, but I like me some Yiddish. What can I say? And the Hakeem Jeffries again did one of these interviews. I think just last night, saying, "I don't know. I'm going to make a decision when I make a decision." That mealy-mouthed fella. Do you know I'm secretly related to him? That's neither here nor there. By marriage. Anyway.
I mean, I'm apparently a descendant of Robert E. Lee. By slavery.
That's obviously not on you. That's not on you. But in addition to him and the Democratic leadership in New York not endorsing, except for now Kathy Hochul, I think was peer pressured to endorse because her lieutenant governor is running against her as like the kind of pro-Zoran candidate. Listen to what Kamala Harris had to say about whether she endorsed Zoran Mamdani.
The folks who you met with in this way include some of the people who you see very frequently now on MSNBC: Jasmine Crockett, Angela Alsobrooks, Maxwell Frost, Robert Garcia Moore. Arguably the fastest rising star right now in Democratic politics is Zoran Mamdani, who is going to be elected mayor of New York City, and probably in a landslide if the polls are anything to go by. Lots of mainline Democrats have been very shy about his candidacy. They seem somewhat flummoxed by his success. As a sort of talent spotter in the Democratic Party, what do you think of him and his candidacy? And what do you think of mainline Democratic shyness and agitation about the prospect that he's going to win?
Look, as far as I'm concerned, he's the Democratic nominee and he should be supported. Do
you endorse his candidacy?
I support the Democrat in the race, sure. But let me just say this. He's not the only star. I know that, he's in New York, and I know New Yorkers think they're the center of the world, and here we are in New York having this interview.
It is the biggest city in the country.
And I love New York, as the saying goes. I really do. But, there are people like Barbara Drummond in Mobile, Alabama, Helena Moreno in New Orleans. They're all running for mayor, too, and they are stars. So I hope that we don't so over-index on New York City that we lose sight of the stars throughout our country who are right now running for mayor and many other offices, governor, and so on. So that's where I am. We got a big tent, and we got a lot of stars.
2020.
Amanda, we got a big tent.
We have a big tent. You're right, because it's a flippin' circus. So first
of all, no disrespect to those other people that she named, but this is not a conversation about them right now.
It's not.
She said, I'm supporting the Democrat in the race. Did she not know there's 3 Democrats in this race? That, yes, he won the Democratic primary, but that hasn't stopped Democratic Governor Andrew Cuomo and current Democratic Mayor Eric Adams from still being in this race?
Correct. And I believe that she actually does know that, which is why she says things like that so flippantly, and folks will not question it because it manages to still be correct while also being a deflection, right?
She's daffy as hell. Rachel Maddow is a Rhodes Scholar, and the fact that she just let her say that.
Well, Rachel Maddow, don't get me started on Rachel Maddow. Rachel Maddow's getting paid $24 million a year. Oof. To do one episode a week. Help me understand.
Good gig if you can get it. Good gig if you can get it.
So you had asked earlier, what brought me to this politics space. Mm-hmm. And it's not even that I'm in a politics space. It's that I'm in someone said to me today that I'm good at untangling reality. Mm. And I find that we are so just overwhelmed with the propaganda of it all that a lot of folks really are finding themselves frustrated because they're like, I see something here that feels wrong, but I just don't have the language for it. And so I end up becoming kind of a resource for that. People tell me all the time, oh, you gave me the words to make it make sense. I could feel that this was wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. We're watching Kamala Harris, and it seems kind of just like a benign interview, but for her to suggest that the mayor of New York is in equal importance at the present time with whoever the mayor of Mobile, Alabama is really come on, that's disingenuous. And it completely disassociates the realities of the fact that he has been running as a DSA candidate, right? There was a socialist aspect here that you're trying to do a false, do a sleight of hand to not address, but that we know is what's central to them not endorsing him. So she found a way to I would actually argue that in this case, she did do the politicking very deftly because she really just sides. I mean, that was like a Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift away from the topic at hand. But so I feel like there aren't enough people like yourself and myself that are Black that are willing to call these things to the mat. There's you, me, there's Sabby Sabs, there's Nico House. I mean, there's starting to be more people. And I think that that's happening because it's also strength in numbers, right? But
there's
I
think the Blackness of
my gears.
It's important.
If you like using Yiddish, I like using old white people language, gears.
No, I'm so with you, and I'm so glad that you raised the race of it all because I'm Googling it, and my suspicions are confirmed. Like, the people that she named are Black, right? The other mayors are Black. And so often liberals, establishment Democrats use Blackness as a shield to cover up the extent to which they're being establishment. So she's going to be like, oh, Zoran's cool and all, but what about these Black centrists over here? I mean, I don't actually know these people's politics. Maybe but demographically, given what states they're from, I'm going to guess that Barbara Drummond and whomever else she named are dyed-in-the-wool centrist Democrats who are going to toe the party line. And so she's like, look over there. It is a sleight of hand. It's a look over there.
That's what Al Sharpton did to him earlier in his campaign.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. We covered this on the show recently. Al Sharpton asking that like painful question. The globalize the intifada. Al Sharpton couldn't even pronounce intifada, but apparently had some big feelings about it.
Globalize the frittata. But also Zoran's response to that was really whack, in my opinion, as well.
I agree. I'm right there with you, and I have my like.
I don't believe in him anymore. But that's just me.
I have my concerns as well, 100%. And I mean, I've said this before, so I won't belabor the point, but I basically feel like either they don't let him win. I'm not like, I don't think it's over. I think that Rachel Maddow was overly confident when she said, of course he's going to win the race. So either they don't let him win because he is the real thing, or he wins and he's not. And I know that's like kind of maybe a convenient way for me to frame it. I would love to be wrong. I'll just put that out there. I hope that whatever moderating he's doing now that he thinks is going to help him win is not a reflection of how he is going to choose to moderate when he's in office. But that's like literally never been the case that someone became less moderate once they were in office after moderating in advance.
And you know why? Because not everyone's not fair, but because the masses support that, right? I just remember being one of those people who was like, what do you expect Barack to do? I was one of those people, and now I'm just like,
wait till his second term.
Yes,
he'll
just
do
get them
reparations
in.
then.
Just get them in, and then and I'm like, and then you'll what?
Right.
Because we love to say that, but what's the tools? What are the actual tools of holding the feet to the fire once they're in office? I don't know the tools that I've seen work effectively.
There are none. This is the time to have influence, and the idea of trying to say that Zoran needs to moderate when he's 20 points up in polls, and it was his failure to moderate that galvanized so many people to his defense is so ass backward. I can't even begin to explain it.
That's what I've been saying, and they were mad at me.
So, like, you've raised this sort of your like trajectory, the radicalization of October 7th a couple of times now. I want to ask you about what kind of pushback that you've gotten over the sort of rejection of vote blue no matter who, especially given, again, that you have, I think, more sort of relationships in some of these Black media spaces than I do with someone like, Roland Martin, who,
well, they all talk shit about me. I mean, they all threw me to the wolves, Roland.
What is that? Like, what? Like, there's a part of me that wants to believe, like, if I could get in a room with I used to have some disagreements with Nicole Hannah-Jones, for instance, back in the first Bernie era in like 2017, where I felt like someone who is a progressive, someone who has the background that you do, should have been more critical of Hillary and not so anti-Bernie in the course of the primary. And this caused a lot of friction between us. But in my head, it's like there's someone whose work that I followed and respected. If we were ever in the same room together, I could persuade you. Like, if I got that chance.
That's how I felt. Honestly, that's how I felt when I met Kamala. I felt like we could have a sister girl conversation, and it was not that.
No, it wasn't. But I mean, what's your read on why so many of these people, like Kamala, she's at the top, she's got pressures on her that we can all imagine the pressures of the state, deep state and all of that. Yeah. But someone like Roland Martin, all these sort of useful idiots in the Black media intelligentsia who do a lot of the work
they're gonna be mad you call them useful idiots. Girl.
Well, it's a term of art and they can feel however they want to feel about it, but it is what it is. I mean, when I did Roland Martin, I think, as National Press Secretary, and he was you would have thought I was Donald Trump. I think that, to be honest, he could have, Stephen Miller sit in front of him in a show and be more genteel and polite with him than with me.
Because I
represent a Black woman who doesn't support the
betrayal.
Democrat.
You are an example of betrayal.
That's it.
That's what you are.
That's it.
How dare you?
He has higher expectations of me than he does Stephen Miller. Yeah.
Exactly. And I've had people really to this day, I mean, literally today, someone's like, we're here because of people like Amanda Seales, because she influenced her following not to vote for Kamala Harris, because she influenced her following. And I'll do it again. I think the other thing is that so many folks in those positions are not doing the type of analysis that we're doing, though, right? Yeah. And a lot of people who are now leftists are former Democrats who, for whatever reason, were given a catalyst that forced them into deeper analysis where they no longer could align with this nonsense because it was just too obvious to continue to be in support of. That was my story. And I know so many of my peers where that's the same thing. So, someone like Roland Martin, Joy Reid, like Angela Rye, Tiffany D. Cross, like the Native Lamp Pond, like all these people. My frustration with them is that they really do. They're actually not idiots. They're actually intellects who I won't say they're well-read people. They have been educated. They're smart people who are, for whatever reason, and I don't want to surmise for them because I don't know why, but for whatever reason, they refuse to do that deeper analysis. That people like myself and others have decided to do also at the behest of the time, right? Like I can understand maybe during the Obama era, like not doing that because it looks a lot nicer on the surface. But when you have all the buildings crumbling and you have all these videos in your face of people all around the world, not just Palestinians, who are being, having their land dispossessed, who are being degraded, denigrated, Congo, Sudan, all of this has to do with us. And you're not asking yourself, how do I look further into why? That's to a me good feels disingenuous. And I say to anybody who looks to them as their resource, that you're getting a level of discourse that is willfully ignorant because they have the capability to seek deeper. But for whatever reason, they have committed themselves to this idea that this bipartisan two-party binary is the only option. And if you are a student of history, you understand that to be completely false. Yeah. You also understand that for Black people, the effort to create additional parties has consistently been dissuaded, debunked, and destabilized by the very people that you're supporting. The Black Panther Party
Klan poster that was like, Black people don't go to the communists. You know that poster?
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Where they're trying to turn Black people off of communism.
All of these things to me are excusable to a point, right? And I just feel that to be at this inflection point, because I will admit, in 2020, I ended up going with the flow when they were like, you have to push Biden. It's our only option. Because I didn't like Biden. And I was very loud about that. And I was told, I was scorned publicly that I was a danger to the Black community. I mean, I was crack in the 80s because of my opinion. And or just cops in any Black neighborhood anywhere. And so I didn't have the knowledge that I have now, which is why political education, historical context is so imperative for all of us in this time, because what it provides is not only a sense of context, but it provides a sense of confidence in how you are navigating a space. And we are so accustomed to having to look at other people tell us what to do. And so when you start to understand that these people telling you what to do are not working for you, this is manufactured consent.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And who are they working for? I mean, a lot of those people you named, the Tiffany Crosses of the world, that's who got sicked on me hard when I declined to endorse Biden after the Bernie campaign ended. So Bernie said, he dropped out of the race. Like 5 days later, he endorsed Biden. I didn't realize, I think I was kind of politically naive. That was my first campaign. I'd never really worked in politics before. So when I thought I was kind of innocently tweeting, okay, good for him, but I'm not endorsing Biden. I thought I was a free agent and could just have my own opinion. But what I didn't realize is that most of the people in this space are very much looking for their next job in this space. And a condition of getting said job is to not say things like that. So they were all, Tiffany Cross was like, you'll never work in this town again. And what's her name? Simone Sanders was like, some young comms agents need to realize that they need to keep their mouth shut. And I was like, well, thanks for the compliment, but I'm 4 years older than you. But thanks for telling me I'm still looking good. But like it's so coordinated.
Yes.
And so to your point, when you say like Angela Rye is an intelligent person, I believe that. Like I don't think these people are finding their way to these politics because they're unintelligent. But that almost makes it worse.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And you know, it's like when you look at Van Jones, you're like, you used to be an organizer in the Bay. And I think people only trust him because he wears glasses. I think people only trust him because he wears glasses. I stand on that.
Because he has that like serious black man. The glasses are a big part of it. But
it's very Booker T. It's very Booker T. It's very, I was the first graduate of Tuskegee Institute.
Did you see that clip going around, by the way, of I think Sunny Hostin dragging him this question on The View?
I remember that in real time.
Now, Van, you do spend a lot of time, threading the middle and trying to unite people. But there are those who really accuse you of being a political opportunist, a chameleon, so to speak, who provided racial cover for former disgraced, twice impeached President Trump. You said this, and I quote, Donald Trump, and I get beat up by liberals every time I say this, but I'm going to keep saying it. He has done good stuff for the black community, opportunity zone stuff, black college stuff. There's a side to Donald Trump that I think he does not get enough credit for. Yet, just recently, you cried on CNN when Joe Biden was elected the 46th president, and you said, it's easier to be a parent now. Character matters now. Truth matters. You even mentioned George Floyd and said a lot of people felt they couldn't breathe. People in the black community don't trust you anymore. What is your response?
Well, I don't think that's true. The entire quote I said was that Trump.
When she was like, people don't they don't like you. They don't trust you.
Black people don't trust you. Sometimes Sunny and I, we do not share the same politics, but sometimes she will read someone. So occasionally we'll be on the same side of something, and she will deliver a read that makes me forgive and forget a lot of other things that she's been saying. But
here's what I want to happen. Here's what I want to happen, Briahna.
Yeah.
I really wish that the shared goal of liberation for Black folks could be a meeting ground for those who align themselves with Democrats and those who consider themselves leftists. What's frustrating is that even our idea of what is liberation is not in alignment. I think for them, it's very Black excellence, which requires order, which requires an upholding of establishment, which requires assimilation, whether they want to argue it or not, it does. And for those who consider ourselves leftists, I refer to myself as a Black radical, we are actively in every facet of our lives challenging that. You know, I am completely independent. I bought my book back from Simon & Schuster. I was going to put out my memoir. It was already listed. It was for sale on Amazon and Barnes and all that stuff since April. And then when I got my editor's notes back, they were glaringly they were glaringly myopic and shallow and Zionist.
Can you give an example? Like what was your editor saying?
A very easy example is I said in my chapter on being radicalized around Palestine that I had a 7-minute conversation with expert on Palestine, Dr. Mark Lamont Hill, and realized that what had been presented to me as something very complicated was actually quite simple. And her response to that was, did you consult with any Israeli scholars?
Woof! Not even Palestinian, Israeli. Because there's an argument for a sure Palestinian scholar. Israeli?
Did you consult with any Israeli scholars? Then there was like another in there. There was
also, I'm sorry. This is a memoir. So you're just telling what happened.
Yes.
So like what happened is what happened. Like you can't go back in time.
This
like,
was
what do you mean?
Every note was her questioning like my telling of like not how I told it or this paragraph should be in this space. No, it was like, why'd you do that? I talked about, I said that
questioning your life.
I said that I was very kind of like people were telling me so after Kamala was named the candidate, there was an immediate attack on me. by Black Democrats on the internets to discredit my voice. Immediate. And
I'm not surprised by that.
We now know that folks got checks, right? But
right.
And
shout out Taylor Lorenz. Yeah.
And so, it was so like bizarre to me what I was watching, that when people started telling me like, this is coordinated, I was like, come on. And they were like, oh no, this is.
It's all. I can feel it. Can I tell you, I can feel it on Twitter when there's a wave.
Yes.
It's like very accounts with very small number of followers. They'll follow you. They claim to hate you, but they follow you. So they're clearly lying in wait for you to do a certain kind of a tweet and monitoring your behavior. They'll all say the same kind of thing. I've noticed that one of the patterns is, I used to really like you, but like somebody did some psychological study to show that you are more likely to be persuaded out of an opinion if you think it's someone from your own cohort. And so there's a lot of that.
Yes.
I block those immediately because like, no, you didn't like me.
You never
have no mutual follows. You are not part of my team. Like, no.
No.
And so I want to validate that it makes you feel crazy because you can't prove a lot of it.
Yes.
But I have also noticed that what triggers the swarm is often something about not voting blue.
So what triggered the swarm was that, right? Like, I wasn't even saying don't vote blue, but what I was saying was, if Kamala wants to win, she needs to do X, Y, Z. Right?
Yeah.
Like, they have to coalition build, not to the right, but to the left. There are all of these people who are voters who are saying they will not vote that need to be engaged. There are also people who are not voters that also need to be engaged. And this is how it can be done. And I also was like, and then they started turning up. And so when I was writing in the book, I said, I didn't really realize why this would be happening. But then when people started bringing it to my attention, it made sense. Like, I have 2.2 million followers. I'm on HBO and I'm bona fide brilliant. And my editor, her note for that was, how are we measuring brilliance?
Stop, Amanda.
I swear for Lord. Not that you're not, but it seems to undermine your point to state two facts and an opinion. So I bought the book back, and I want y'all to know that was a pretty penny that I did not have, because I left my lifestyle, Briahna. Like, I am selling my artwork and my pins, and I am going to be self-publishing. I hope I can come back when I drop my one-woman show.
Please.
What would the ancestors say?
The door is open. I would love that.
And but I'm charting a course that's really about. I'm charting a course that's really about political education and about organizing elevation. So like, I just did the Amanda Land Summit this weekend at the People's Forum, where I hosted 50 registrants. And then we had two open segments, two open sessions. One was a panel called Cracking Up the System, where I took my former comedian background and I had two comics, Davidson Boswell and Christina Brown, and they were in conversation with two veteran organizers, Angelica Landon and Claudia de la Cruz. And they were in conversation around how art is involved in organizing, but then also around just whatever people wanted to get information about from folks who are actually doing this. And I wanted to do this because the conversations that we end up having to have sometimes can feel very Russian play. They can feel very long, very didactic, very just morose. So we need to bring some levity that doesn't undermine the gravitas.
I agree.
Right. So my show, Views from Amanda Land, that I do every Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern, which I would love to have you on YouTube, Amanda Seals TV. Like, that is the goal of that show, to provide not the news, but context for the news. Right. So so many people are just bombarded. You know this. Everyone's bombarded every day with some new wild, like, what? They're missing how many people from Alcatraz? Excuse me? Hakeem Jeffries is silicone? Dang.
Hey, leave my cousin alone.
And I just feel like there just aren't a lot of folks who look at these things through a Black lens without their identity politics limiting how they look at these things.
Yeah. It's a delicate balance, I gotta say. And that's why I appreciate you. And I appreciate Sabby Sab so much, because you're right. She's one of the few Black people and Black women in this lefty space. And she has been so unapologetic about the extent to which race matters. And yes, a lot of leftists have been sort of burned by the way that identity was weaponized against the left in the context of the 2016 Bernie Sanders era. And then again, somewhat more in 2020, though not to the same extent. And are very kind of wary of when identity, race in particular, is brought up in conversations. And for reasons that I fully understand. And I understand the critique, and I've written about the critique of, the kind of, shut up, you can't criticize the Secretary of Defense because he's Black kind of argument that the Democrats often make. Or, what we just saw from Kamala Harris, where it's like, don't pay attention to this great popular socialist because look at all these Black mayors. Those are the ones you should be paying attention to. Or the way all of these Black cities are the ones where all the cop cities are being built. And you have our mayor here in D.C., Bowser, talking about it's great that the National Guard is here and Donald Trump is making the city safer. Like, it's crazy. And they just put a Black face in all this fascism and they're laundering it, right? So, I understand that critique is valid and good, but that doesn't mean that race doesn't matter. And especially in the wake of this Charlie Kirk stuff, it has been very evident to me, even among certain leftists, the ones that are like, obviously, I'm not going to be forced to celebrate this guy's life, and I'm not going to be cowed out of saying that he was obviously a virulent racist and bigot, and this is not even controversial. Here's a supercut of all of the stuff that he's been saying. Versus another kind of leftist and liberal like the Ezra Kleins and either some other people considered to be friends on the left, who've been very quick to be like, okay, but he was a nice guy and he was nice to me and this is a horrifying thing. It's like, you don't have to do all that.
No, you're just white. You're just white. That's what's happening right now. You're just, this is white behavior. Your politics may be leftist, but your personality is, you are white. That's what's happening.
What do you think this is? Why, when you hear someone...
That's deeply problematic.
I want to hear you put this into words, because when you hear someone... Look, I don't have any problem, obviously, saying I don't think people should be assassinated. That's not the part anybody's objecting to. It's the part where you're going out of your way to identify with this guy and to...
Because you see yourself in him. Because you see yourself in him. That's what I mean by you white. Because ultimately, folks who are white by race but not by person, they don't see themselves in him. They're not saying that. I have a joke that I tell on stage about how you can identify the four different types of white people. And this helps you determine, where they should be in your life. So it can be contextualized in their response to January 6th. If their response to January 6th was, that's right, get her done, then you already know, okay, you're not my kind of white. Then you have the folks who were crying with their hand on their heart singing, God bless America. I just didn't know, this is not the America I believe in. And those whites, we know what they are, right? Those are the whites who are liberals, but it's fine if it's happening as long as it's not inconveniencing them.
It needs to be polite. Things just need to be civil. Yeah.
Then you have the allies who are definitely man, if those were Black people, you already know what would have happened. And you're we appreciate you allies, but allies still look at you as an other. Right? They still look at we're helping you. The ally shows up to the rally and is that's right, Keisha. We should be doing, you're let Keisha talk at her rally, please. But then the only white that I'm trying to rock with is the ones who are watching what happened on January 6th and say, look at these crackers. That's it. And I consider those to be high quality whites. And that's it. And, in this...
forgetting you're a vocalist, too.
But in this framework, it's so obvious what is being done with this person's death. That if you align yourself in any form or fashion with the conversation and it is outside of that, then I consider you to be in alliance with it. I just saw Sean King this morning, defending something that Tucker Carlson said and that it was a biblical story and Jews who don't even... Why is this why are you talking about this?
What was a biblical story?
that apparently Tucker Carlson told a biblical story in relation to the podcaster's death. And
the clip of that was a wild.
Ultimately, he was a Christian evangelist. And it actually reminds me of my favorite story ever. So it's about 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem, and Jesus shows up and he starts talking about the people in power, and he starts doing the worst thing that you can do, which is telling the truth about people, and they hate it, and they just go bonkers. They hate it, and they become obsessed with making him stop. This guy's got to stop talking. We've got to shut this guy up. And I can just sort of picture the scene in a lamplit room with a bunch of guys sitting around eating hummus, thinking about what do we do about this guy telling the truth about us? We must make him stop talking. And there's always one guy with the bright idea, and I could just hear him say, I've got an idea, why don't we just kill him? That'll shut him up. That'll fix the problem. It doesn't work that way.
I see a lot of different interpretations of that. That was a wild clip. It felt to me, I just talked about this actually on a different podcast, Bad Hezbollah. I recorded yesterday. I'm not sure when it's coming out. But it felt to me like that was Tucker almost being like, because the goss.
I know.
The scuttlebutt is that there are people who think that Israel did it.
Of course.
And that Tucker is one of those people because he's also been critical of Israel along with Candace Owens and some of these conservative figures. And that he was basically saying from the stage, like,
they did to him what they did
killed
to Jesus.
Him. Exactly.
I don't even want to hear you suggesting that this is even a relevant analysis because it presents that this podcaster is, you understand what I'm saying? Like, leave it. Leave these people to do their nonsense or check their nonsense. That's how I feel.
What do you make? Because this is a very interesting sort of, the discourse is reemerging around this because these high-profile, extremely influential conservatives coming out and saying X, Y, and Z about Israel, it's very easy to take that as a W. I mean, I reposted a Candace Owens tweet the other day where she was fully snatching all of that. I have to, maybe we should play it.
Pam Bondi, who is a complete loser and a tool, is trying to use the assassination of Charlie Kirk to lay the groundwork for hate speech laws in America. The very thing that Charlie was fighting against. They all just got right to work trying to pass laws. Well, Charlie Kirk is that, so now we got to hate speech is something. Exactly what he's messaging me about that he doesn't want to happen. They're trying to use his death to justify. Listen to what Pam Bondi said to Katie Miller on her podcast. Take a listen.
There's free speech and then there's hate speech.
No.
And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle.
So to be clear, that's the feds telling you that they want to pass speech laws, which will basically just give them the full power to go after you for wrongthink, okay? And they're doing it in the most disturbing way ever by going after Charlie Kirk's legacy and using his assassination to say, oh, well, now we've got to get hate speech done.
I don't even know her.
I know, but she snatched, the way she gathered up, I think she was on Piers Morgan.
Nope.
Was like, it would have cut and paste. I would have said every word of what she, well, let me not say every word because I don't remember exactly 100% of what she said in the 3-minute clip or whatever it was. But like to have someone with her audience saying to her people that you are an unconscionable bigot for not caring about Palestinian babies.
Do that. I don't need her to do that for my audience.
I hear that. I hear that critique that it's like, I don't have to elevate her for her to be happy that she's over there saying what she's saying. Right. But especially when there's someone with a bigger platform than me, like, I'm like, well, I'm sorry, I'm hardly platforming Charlie Kirk, right? I'm hardly platforming.
Well, I would ask you to rethink that, Briahna, because
tell me, what do you think about it?
Because I think that there has to be far more interest convergence for there to be relevance. I think there has to be far more interest convergence for there to be a willingness to share your space with someone who has actively spoken to the denigration of your existence.
Well, she has. And let's not equivocate about that.
So
she has been aggressively anti-Black. Like,
so
let's not
I
even.
Can't, I can acknowledge, like, oh, glad you're saying that, without intermingling our spaces. And I mean that for her, MTG, all of these folks. Like, I think that there is a version where, because they're not going to retweet you, best believe that.
Well, yes and no, but Amanda, like, I'll be so for real with you. When I was fired from The Hill, you said you had no support or very little support when you were being canceled by your kind of creative community. I received very little support, but she did have me on. And she tried to go down, she brought up some of that Black Lives Matter stuff. And I said, Candace, we have a very significant disagreements on this. I will talk to the narrow subject of what it means to have been fired for my views on Israel. She had been recently ousted, obviously, from.
But that's why.
Whatever it was.
You. But she used you.
But I don't know.
You may have used her back, but it may have been symbiosis. But she used you as, look, Black women are getting attacked for talking about Israel.
But it is true. Is that not true?
I don't know her story. So I don't know let me say this. I don't know the truth of her story because she doesn't stand in truth. So there's no reason for me to believe the way that she narrates her existence.
Well, look, it was pretty public when she was ousted from the Daily Wire.
I'm aware.
And it was,
but I just, again, I cannot just absolve people of the way they are choosing to exist simply because we agree on something obvious.
So let's talk about that. What does it take to be in conversation without it being absolution? Because, for example,
there is certain things that are absolute.
We had Marjorie Taylor Greene on The Hill, for instance. And I was very glad to have the opportunity because we sit there and we'll say, like, the left will say things like, the anti-war Democrats are so weak that the anti-war movement is on the right. And the right gets a lot of juice out of that. And it may be true, but to me, it shouldn't be a credit to the right. It's a way to critique the left and push the Democrats to being better on anti-war issues, including Palestine, et cetera. But to have the opportunity to actually talk to Marjorie Taylor Greene, I was able to ask her, do you actually support cutting the military budget? Because it's one thing to say, oh, I want to end the war in Ukraine and I don't support the war in Gaza. But it's another thing to say that you actually support cutting the military budget as opposed to doing what most Republicans do, was just to say, I'm going to be anti-war, but only because I want to start a new war in Taiwan or whatever. And her answer to that question was, no, I don't want to cut the military budget. Mm-hmm. And to me, that exposes her in a way that I never would have had the opportunity to do if I weren't in a position to interview her. And at some
I do
point,
think there's some nuances here.
Yeah, I would love to be able to have a conversation with, frankly, Candace Owens on my own show where I have the latitude in the space.
One of these people is an elected official that literally makes laws that affect your life.
Yeah.
The other person is a podcaster. So there's that.
Who has an enormous amount of reach.
But I also feel like there's a context to go into it. So when you asked in the beginning of the show, why did Jubilee, right? So it's a very similar context, right? Why would you go on this?
Yeah, exactly.
Why would you go on this platform that you know is toxic?
Yeah.
That is absolutely about rage bait.
Yeah.
And it was because I knew that I could create a context that would be valuable beyond the exchange. So you having her on your platform where you're controlling the space and you are determining the context, she's not using you, right? And I feel you're able to then dictate how you want it to go. I was very pleased with being able to a lot of people, by the way, think that debates are about you trying to change the other person's mind. That's not the goal of a debate. The goal of a debate is for you to present your ideas in a way that is so unwavering that, folks who are watching say,
it's for the audience. Yeah. It's not for the person you're debating necessarily. Yeah. I completely agree.
People were like, did you change their minds? I was like, I didn't go in there with that intention, but I knew that there would be so many people watching that honestly didn't even have like a position on this, on these topics, right? Or that had been provided a position, but didn't necessarily have facts behind it. So I took it as that, and I wanted it ideally to be an example of Black people with disparate points of view being able to have respectful discourse. And they didn't show this in the taping, but I mean in the video, but 4 times during the taping, I addressed the room and said, that's what we're here to do. You know, like if you're here to get a soundbite, you're not here for the same reason I am. I was like, you know, I love all of y'all as Black people. And that's what I'm here to be in conversation with. There was one brother who actually said to me, you're acting like an animal. And I had him removed. And I had them cut that from the show because I know that he was just saying that to get a click. To get a clip. Yeah. Yeah. Another brother had interviewed with the deceased podcaster right after.
Yeah. I mean, so I thought it was really interesting. I heard you tell Sabby that part of why you agreed to do the Jubilee was because you felt there was something different about talking to other Black people and having that be the context of the debate. And I agree. In fact, there's I don't know if you're familiar with this conservative Black economist named Glenn Loury, who's been a professor at Brown forever. He retired in the last year or so, who I've had on the show, and we've had, you know, debates, conversations more. It's very, it's not like high octane, but conversations about our politics and why he's a conservative, because him in particular being an older Black man who was at like MIT in the 60s and who experienced Jim Crow as an adult, you know, experienced a pre-civil rights era, and who is not in a position and doesn't deny the reality. Look at the kitty. I mean, I'm like, please. He doesn't deny the reality of discrimination. Okay. To me, it felt like there was a starting point that didn't feel like it was going to be as dehumanizing or invalidating and contentious as debating someone like Charlie Kirk, right? Which I also did, but that's a whole other story. Yeah. And I did find over our years of our relationship, he, and this last time coming on the show, really stunned me, actually, with his vulnerability and maturity, because he said, basically, that having read Ta-Nehisi Coates' book, The Message, and being exposed to his writings on Palestine in particular, it not only caused him to become solidaristic with Palestine, it caused him to reevaluate the way that race played in American politics, and his choice to deny how much race really affected American politics and his own political ideology. Yes. Now, you can think and feel whatever you want to think and feel about the fact that it was only at this point in his life and only because of Palestine, but he got there. Came to that realization. But like, I can't deny that was a very vulnerable admission from him that I really appreciate, and that might not have come about if we weren't in dialogue with each other, and if he hadn't been in dialogue with Ta-Nehisi Coates' work.
I do think, though, that you said something really important, which was that he came to the conversation with a mutual respect.
Yes. Yeah, yes. But also, I feel like it was grounded in race. So another example would be someone like Coleman Hughes, who I have less of a sort of like interpersonal warmth with, I would say. And no disrespect to Coleman, but I just don't feel the same. We don't have the same relationship that I do with Glenn Loury. But still, I find myself willing to talk to Coleman in a way that I don't really want to talk to, I don't know, Nick Fuentes. Because Coleman at the end of the day is Black. And Coleman's not going to say he might say like, Black people need to pull their bootstraps up, but he's not going to sit here and tell me Black people are intellectually inferior, because it implicates himself on a basic level, right?
Well, those people were saying that to me in the Jubilee thing, though.
That Black people are intellectually inferior?
Yes. They were like,
did you hold up a mirror?
I mean, I'm like, do you hear yourself? Like, this is crazy. They're like, Black people are violent. Black people are more likely to harm each other than any other race. I mean, it was wild. But I say all this to say that, you know, listen, Briahna, all of us ain't cut the same. You know, like, and we all have our strengths. We all have our roles. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's the beauty that we have to lean into more. So, you know, that some of us have we just have different temperaments where we can manage certain things different than others. You know, like, I feel like 2 years ago, I would never have been able to do that Jubilee thing because I would have had so much just vitriol for all of you, just you idiots. Whereas this time when I walked into the room, I just immediately felt overcome with like a sense of responsibility to teach versus to check. You know,
Did you have a favorite part? Did you have a favorite moment?
A favorite moment? You know what's funny? My mom is obsessed with like getting things made at Walgreens, like in their photo department. And she just was like, oh, open the package I just sent you. And before I came on here, I opened it and it was like she had made a notebook out of the Jubilee. Like she like took one of the screenshots and made a notebook. And I was like, why'd you make this? I don't want to remember this.
So sweet.
I don't want to remember this. I wouldn't say I have a favorite moment. I mean, I think I was proud that I was able to, even though it wasn't my intention, that I was able to get some people to think differently in a very short amount of time. Because I'm like you, where I feel like, so the way you're like, you know, I'm talking to these like erudite conservatives and I feel like I can like turn them, like bring them into new information. Like I feel like that with folks who are more like your everyday folks. Like, come, let's have lunch. I'd like to talk to you. Sure. I feel like the Jehovah's Witness who are like, have you met Jesus? Like, have you met socialism? Let me talk to you.
We're about to that spirituality. We got to be evangelists.
Well, I just think that there's a multi-pronged approach to all of this. And sometimes we end up having to play very different hats than we plan to. I would never have expected that at this phase in my career, I would be a teacher. You know, that I would be teaching an art class to fifth through seventh graders, which I am. I wouldn't have expected, you know, to be simplifying my life and choosing to live far more, you know, like to live beyond. I mean, I try my best every day to figure out how to get more and more out of capitalism, right? Like how to be more and more walking the walk. And when you live in LA, I mean, that's just not what it is. Everything is, how do I get a bigger house? How do I get a bigger car? How do I get a better job? Like, how do I get more green juice? Is there any more green juice? How can I get it? So I think we're all in a time of shifting, a time of changing. I would love to see more people because I feel like there are people who are doing that, but they don't want to publicly explain it and state it. And there was a sister at the summit who was one of the volunteers, and she pulled me to the side and she was like, I just want to thank you for healing publicly. And then she like, you know, did the sister hold, you know, the holding of the hands and it was the laying on of hands. And she was like, no, I need you to really hear me. I want to thank you for healing publicly because it gave someone like me permission to meet myself at my vulnerability.
She's right, Amanda. I mean, you have been so sort of raw and vulnerable about your own mental health and, you know, ADHD and like all of these things in such public spaces and in spaces where, you know, you're not always given a fair shake and where people are like kind of looking for a reason to attack you. And when people show up repeatedly vulnerable like that, despite having suffered a lot of slings and arrows from the public, I think that's a very brave thing. I do. And when I see someone like you in the public space, it is courageous. There's like a level of like agreeing with someone all the time, and obviously I substantively agree with you. But there's like another level of when I see people who are willing to show their work. Do you know what I mean? And I respect that on a separate and independent level. So like, even if there's something we disagree on, maybe you'll be mad at me someday because I'm interviewing Candace Owens or whatever. But like, separate and apart from that,
just so you know, if I were, just so you know, if I were upset with that, I wouldn't talk about it publicly. I would
also
text,
it's okay.
no, because I have your, no, it's not. I have your phone number. You're not content. Like
well,
me talking about you doing that thing, that I hate that. I hate when people use me as content.
I appreciate that. But also, Amanda, if we did talk about it and you were like, girl, I don't think that was a good idea. And I'm like, I hear you. I see your point of view. I made a decision. Maybe I wouldn't make that decision again, whatever. And you wanted to talk about how, I didn't agree with what Briahna did. I'm okay with that. Like, I don't mind having like disagreements with people's strategy and whatsoever. Like, to me, it's not like, I have friends in this space and it's, we're all in this political space and we have different points of view. And it's like, it doesn't mean that I don't care about you and that I don't substantively value you. Like, I think I'm built a little weird. I have observed about myself. I'm coming to terms with the fact that I think that maybe I'm a little anomalous in that. Like, I don't mind if you disagree with me. I really don't. Like, there was this thing that happened on the left called Force the Vote that I'm not going to get into. But, like, it was curious to me that there are people who disagree with me to this day about it, who I like. And it frustrated me that we were on the same side of this political disagreement. But I find myself wanting us to be together and still, like, in community. And I feel like there's a resistance to it because there's a presumption that because we still disagree on this thing, that we shouldn't. Yeah. We should be enemies or something forever.
Well, I will say this. I do think that you are also a part of like a unique space of folks who have been like online leftist voices, right? Like who have been in journalism spaces, but like who these are, like this is the community, right? And there has been. And so I think like you guys have cultivated that in a way that's like kind of different for like how I've entered into this space. Sure. So I think my relationship to how I am referred to or addressed is different, right? Because like I'm someone who's had to deal with like gossip blogs.
Yeah, and you're right. You're on a whole nother level.
Like Shade Room and like this type of nonsense that is really only meant to like use you like they will completely just excoriate you for capital gain. I mean, that's and it means nothing. Like you are complete flotsam to them and it's what it is. So I think I am sensitive to that because I think this internet definitely has created kind of like a exceptional, like it's the similar thing how like people will just accept certain behaviors from politicians because they're like, well, what do you expect? It's politics, you know? So people will be like, well, it's the internet, so there you go. But I do think that there can be disagreements, and I feel you in the regard of like, just because I may disagree with something that you've done doesn't mean like I dislike you as a person. Like it doesn't mean like I dislike your character, right? And I think the reason why you get what you're getting from that is because we are an emotionally immature society where no one can take criticism.
Guilty. And I'm not trying to sit here and be like I'm always holier than thou. Like things get on my nerves, but I try to talk myself down off a ledge about it because I what it is for me is also because of the background of politics being our sort of shared space and having these shared goals. We're up against so much that I don't have the emotional space. I can disagree with you, but I don't have the emotional space to be like disconnected from you and mad about you and holding on to resentments. I just don't have that. And we have so many few people in our community. We're all getting canceled and marginalized. The ability that the only platform we're going to have is each other and our ability to boost each other. And
do you have the capacity to bring them together?
I've been trying. People know that I've been trying to have some people on who
I mean, maybe not on, like in the past, like maybe not on, but like behind the scenes.
Oh, also there's that happens as well. There's a healthy DMing that's been happening.
I'm saying old school, like if you can't physically be in person, is there a version? And I only
some of us don't even know each other that well to begin with.
But it needs to happen.
Phone numbers are not had.
There needs to be that type of thing because so I had these brothers on my show on Views from Amandaland from the Alliance for
the Black Alliance for Peace.
No, Alliance for Black Men and Boys of Color in LA.
Okay.
And they were talking, and it's a coalition of like all of these organizations. So I was like, well, do you find that the coalition of all those organizations helps with the organizing work? And they started laughing because they were like, I mean, yes and no. Like, there's power in numbers, but everybody's traumatized. So you're dealing with people. And anytime you're dealing with people, it's a struggle. And so they were like, before we can even have the conversations about the things, we have to do rapport building. We end up having to meet each other at like our person. And he was like, that's something that we had to learn over time. And I think that that's something that also needs to happen with us in these spaces. We've been in this digital realm. COVID did a number on us. Yeah. I will say that that's what so many of the people at the summit said about their experience this weekend. They were like, it just felt really good to be in like a space with minds that you don't have to like walk them through to your point of view. They already get it. There's something valuable about that. And I would also just add that community is inconvenient. Which is why I'll say, like, and I've said this before, I may not be willing to talk to CO because that's just taking it too far for me. But like, I would be willing to talk to Roland and to Tiffany and Angela. And I've said that many times because I still consider them my community. I don't think they're anti-Black. But see, so funny. You wouldn't want to talk to them.
I know. No, I would.
Oh, you would? Okay,
I would love. Are you kidding me? I would have like. There's not a person in this world I wouldn't have on. I mean, that's just me. Like, or that I wouldn't go on their show or whatever it is.
Okay.
But what I suspect, and whatever this means is what it means. I don't know, but I suspect I would have a less contentious conversation with Candace Owens.
I don't doubt that.
Tiffany Cross.
I don't doubt that. I think she also knows that you're much smarter than her.
Well, so I didn't say it. I didn't say it. Tiffany Cross, maybe. I mean, but like Angela Rye, again, I don't think is unintelligent.
No, they're mean girls, but they're not unintelligent. But they're mean girls, and I will say that with a straight face.
I know we would scrap it. I mean, did you see Angela when she was on? They brought her in as like the pinch hitter when Jill Stein and Butch Ware went on The Breakfast Club.
Yes.
And they brought her in as kind of like the Democratic plant to like do all the talking points against the Green Party. Like, I felt like that was, but for what it's worth, that's been her role. That's her job.
But I think that we have to change up our roles. For all intents and purposes, people have known me as an actor and a comedian for a long time. And now they're like, hold up, she actually knows a thing or two about geopolitics and history, and she has pattern recognition because she's autistic, and like she actually be right. I mean, I predicted that Biden would not be running for president in October of 2023. Yep. And I remember texting it, and I said it on the internet, and people were upset, right? They were like, you don't know what you're talking about. How dare you? And sure enough, when he backed out on that Sunday, I came out of a brunch, Briahna. And boy, my phone was lit. You were right.
So what do you think is going to happen with Zuron then? Are you with me? Because I feel like I'm the last one standing to be like, look, I don't want to be like sound crazy, but I'm the last one standing who even has it like as a possibility in their mind that he couldn't maybe not be.
I think it is 1,000% absolutely foolish to think that anything that is challenging Israel is in the bag. I think that is literally foolhardy. And I also think polls are a bunch of BS. Remember when there was going to be a red wave? It was red wave. NPR was like, it's a red wave.
Yeah.
So I think this is what I will say.
Yeah.
We can do all this talking and there's conjecture and et cetera. Like, I stopped going on mainstream news because they just want to have content for content's sake. They don't want to actually consider any pathways forward.
They're still letting you on? Because I can only get a call from Piers Morgan, and I've been declining because it's just so obviously a setup that I can't bring myself to do it most days.
Well, when I did the Jubilee thing, they had me on MSNBC. Then they had me on, they had scheduled me to go on CNN with Tapper, and then News. Which one is the not News Nation? Not Newsmax. News Nation. That's the one with Cuomo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I went on MSNBC, and I've really been a big supporter of Amon because he was the only one over there talking about the genocide. But the questions that they had for me. I ended up coming a day early on accident, and so they had to like whip it up. But the questions were just so perfunctory. It was like, what made you go on there when things could go off the rails? Do you think it was a waste of time? Did you, did any of them bring you closer to their point of view? What are we talking about here? Any of them bring you closer to their point of view? Wait, was it just him or was it his like a panel? No, it's with the other co-hosts too. There's that brunette woman. Was she there? We don't like her. The one who asked Mosa Baputoha about. That's the thing. She's the plant. Like all of those shows have a plant. The network is requiring them to have Ken Jennings or someone like her sitting there. Yes. Doing being the conservative and making sure a conservative point of view on a liberal show. They started doing that with comedy as well. When I was at JFL in 2018, they were doing that. I was one of the Variety's 10 comics to watch. And we had a show where it was like me and Dulce Sloan and Jabuki Young White. And then this random... Oh, how is Jabuki? I miss Jabuki's presence on Twitter. Is he tweeting again? I miss Jabuki. Jabuki used to light it up on a regular basis. Light it up. And then there was this random white guy who played like the white version of Medea. That was like his character. And it was so obviously a plant. And he ended up like bombing and telling everybody that they shouldn't be talking about politics. I mean, that's a whole other thing. But my point that I want to make, though, is that we have to move past commentary. We have to. You're right. And that is going to require more effort from us. It's going to require us to apply more effort emotionally, mentally, physically. We're going to have to take time to meet in spaces. We're going to have to take time to create spaces, not just for us, speakers to speak to each other, but also for other folks. Like, for instance, I do Views for Amanda Land. It's 4 hours long, Briahna. I wake up at 7. I prep the show. I do the show. There's 2 interviews in the show. And then I still do an after show with the Patreon members. It's because a lot of work. People don't realize all that prep. And then for my call-in, I got paid. My deal was that I got paid if I went for 45 minutes, but I would also go for 4 hours because once you get to talking to people, it feels really good. And I know there's a lot of discourse about how we need to touch grass, and you're right, we do need to be in person and in community. But for some people, we're so diffuse, and there's so relatively few people who have these points of views. It also, maybe I'm sick and I have a parasocial relationship with my own audience, but like I really loved talking to people. And I was on there for 4 hours because I wanted to be at the end of the day. And I love teaching. So I'm on there for 4 hours because I'm loving talking about history and they're asking questions and then we're trying to figure things out and we're doing segments and critical thinking, exercise. I love my little intros. So I'm with you. But it doesn't change the fact that like this is labor, right? Yeah. But it is community. And our labor, in my opinion, at present has to be about creating communal spaces for shifting minds, not simply politically, but culturally. And that's my thesis. Well, look, I love what you've been saying about the role the arts have to play, the role that spirituality has to play, the role that comedy has to play. I haven't had a good little kiki like this in a minute. We're not living in funny times, Amanda. No. And I'm always telling Katie Halper this, like people in the space who have a background in comedy, it's like, that's your secret weapon. I need you to be bringing that more to the foreground because everybody is trying to escape while they're learning a little something and not feeling like they're abandoning their principles. And you do such a good job an amazing job, an exemplary job of joining those things together and being such an amazing communicator and being I just really want to validate this because there's no like monetary reward coming for being a good person and being a principled person. So all you get is the validation of your peers, or I'm not saying like you're a peer, but like of your community. So let me just say to you how valiant you've been and how courageous you've been and how consistent you've been and how like open and vulnerable you've been, which I think is what real strength really looks like, and how grateful I am that I can open Instagram and see you being loud and strong in this space and not feel so isolated. And I'm sorry for the cost that you have to bear for doing that. But I hope that there's, I know that you feel comfort in being able to live your values and your morals. And it's a wonderful example to set.
And I'm very thankful for you. And I'm thankful for your willingness to spend so much time with us here today on Bad Faith Podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go do my weekly tennis lesson to try to attempt to not die of a heart attack.
Good. I'm about to go on a hot girl walk myself because you gotta figure out some way to ramp yourself down.
You gotta do something. So want to shout out everybody who's listening. Please watch Views from Amanda Land every Wednesdays, 10 a.m. Eastern on YouTube, Amanda Seals TV, or join the replay crew if you're not able to watch during the live. And also make sure to check out Amanda Land Exports if you want to take a look at my art and my creations. And no, it is not like weird, crafty trinkets. It's stuff that you'll actually like.
Okay, I look forward to looking myself. Thank you, Amanda. Thanks to all of you who tuned into this episode. And if you want an additional episode of Bad Faith Podcast, you can subscribe at patreon.com/badfaithpodcast and get a Monday episode in addition to these Thursday free drops. As always, take care of yourselves and remember to keep the faith. Hey YouTube, thanks for watching. Just a reminder that this is a podcast. You can catch an extra premium episode every Monday for $5 a month at patreon.com/badfaithpodcast. That's patreon.com/badfaithpodcast for $5 a month, an extra episode every week. Additionally, please do consider liking this video, subscribing to this channel. It helps us out. It helps independent media beat the algorithm. We appreciate you. And as always, keep the faith.